A new year of Destiny is coming up, and with it, tweaks to the play experience. You've already clicked on this video, and we all know why we're here, so let's just get to it. Melee damage is getting a pretty massive rework. Where currently melee damage bonuses stack multiplicatively, Edge of Fate will flip this, offering a much simpler additive value to our melee damage sources. In Destiny's current state, a 100 damage melee with a 50% increase will lend you a 150 damage melee. Makes sense. An additional 50% bonus won't take your damage to 200, it will instead take it to 225, since the bonuses are working together with each other as well as the base melee. 100 with a 50% increase is, of course, 150. Adding another 50% doesn't give you 50 extra on your base 100, it's giving you 50% of your new value after your first bonus, 150. 50% of 150 is 75, then add that number to your total, which is 225. This can, as you can see, become very convoluted, which is why with the new additive melee damage bonus system, your 100 damage melee plus two 50% increases will result in a nice rounded 200 melee damage. Nice, clean, simple math. This does result in less damage overall, which Bungie seeks to alleviate through buffs to nearly every single melee damage source. Those cases where certain melee combinations yielded reduced effectiveness have also been deprecated, so stacking melee damage should work as expected now. The TLDR is melee damage will stack better and will function simpler. A new wave of exotic buffs for both weapons and armor will arrive with the new expansion. Weapons are up first. Vigilance Wing will work while solo in PvE activities, and the crowd goes quite mild. Hierarchy of Needs is getting the Darcy and Gallahorn treatment, allowing other players to shoot through the guidance ring with their bows and gain the extra missiles. It'll also be much easier to get a guidance ring, and it will now turn to face the user. This should take it from a fun idea to absolutely insane in the right hands, i.e., my hands. Dead Man's Tale, my beloved, is getting a PvE buff where the cranial spike stacks will give more damage, up to 17%. Be careful, Bungie, we don't want to give it too much. It'll also load an additional round to the weapon for each stack, which actually does sound pretty sweet. Duality's damage perk will now activate on landing most of your pellets, in addition to the current takedown requirement. The Navigator will give extra damage while you have Woven Mail, as well as extra ammo generation. I don't know what that means, but I like ammo, so generating it sounds pretty good to me. Wicked Implement is changing to a rapid fire frame, and it takes an additional shot to slow and freeze because, quote, to account for the faster rate of fire. Classic Bungie. Heart Shadow, if you can even remember what that exotic is going to do what it does now, but for less ammo. Again, the crowd is extremely whelmed today. Same thing with Worldline Zero, more of what it does, but for less ammo. Devil's Ruin is getting a rework, with its beam mode now being something you need to charge up via collecting a fire sprite. The weapon itself will create fire sprites, and the beam will now scorch on hit and ignite on takedown. Tommy's Matchbook will more clearly indicate its current overheat status, deal even less damage to the user while hip firing, and apply a ×1 cure on takedowns while overheated. Winterbite will also deal a little bit less damage to account for the new melee damage changes, and is also intrinsic overload. There's a fair few other exotic weapons receiving some sort of champion breaker, and now is probably a good time to mention that Slow and Shatter will now both stun overload champions alongside any weapons that apply these effects. This will knock down perks like Chill Clip down a peg, but not too much. Not exactly exotic, but there are a few buffs to some existing legendary perks, namely Kinetic Tremors and Attrition Orbs. The Orb Printer, the Area Denial Grenade Launcher, is getting nerfed in its orb creation, but everything else will make orbs faster with Attrition Orbs. Kinetic Tremors will also activate faster on slower firing weapons. Gee, it's as if this buffs someone's die-hard primary that he won't shut up about. Now onto exotic armor. Hunters are getting some decent love. Dragon Shadow and Speedloader slacks both served very similar purposes, so they're giving Dragon Shadow some more bonuses while leaving its functionality alone, while the Speedloaders are getting a slight change, moving towards more of a team support role. It will spread some of its handling and reload speed to allies while also giving dodge energy back for sustained weapon damage. Now, if that sounds exactly like what they did before, yeah, pretty much. But both exotics will offer some way of getting your dodge back quicker, so there's that, I guess. In more impressive news, Mask of Bacchus is receiving an interesting change where instead of giving surges, it will now provide a unique damage buff, which of course comes with the ability to stack with surges. It will also give class ability energy on weapon takedowns with its buff active. Khepri Sting will no longer auto-deploy your smoke bombs on a melee hit, instead giving a free smoke bomb on a weakened takedown, alongside replenishing some melee energy. Another very whelming change overall. Oathkeepers will charge a bit faster and higher, and finally Blight Ranger will do pretty much exactly what it does now, but just be better at it. Alright Titans, listen up. Crest of Alpha Lupi will grant barricade energy when healing teammates, and will allow for additional healing pulses to proc from sustained damage behind a barricade. Phoenix Cradle's sunspots will look friendlier to teammates, so they'll hopefully listen to you when you say the sunspots will heal them. I doubt it though. They will also extend sunspots by dealing solar weapon damage while standing in a sunspot, and has a chance to drop a free sunspot at your feet when applying a solar buff to a teammate. Mark 44 stand-asides will provide bolt charge when paired with Juggernaut, along with a speed boosting wave for teammates behind you. Path of Burning Steps will improve solar weapon damage and ignition damage based on your Roaring Flame stacks instead of its own exclusive buff. This will also stack with Surge mods. Ambient Leap will improve the suspend duration of Dranger's Lash. And finally, Actium War Rig will give a stacking stability, ammo generation, and damage buff to auto rifles and machine guns on takedowns, stacking up to 10 times. Alright Warlocks, let's see what you have to look forward to. Starfire Protocol will now work on radiant weapon damage instead of empowered weapon damage. It will also give a little more grenade energy from hits and a little less from kills. Wings of Sacred Dawn will make enemies less accurate against you while floating, and will grant restoration from solar weapon takedowns. Fellwinter's Helm will maintain its current effects, but will now also apply a smaller weaken on powered melee hits. Prometheum Spurs will give rift energy on weapon takedowns, and takedowns while in a rift will either give radiant or cure, depending on if you're in a healing or empowering rift respectively. Boots of the Assembler has this wall of text that I just really don't feel like reading. Alright, fine, I'll read it. Okay, basically it's just going to be better. The exact same as it is now, but better. Oh, and it'll give class ability energy instead of extending your rift now. Finally, Geomag Stabilizers is getting a nerf. Kinda. It's going from giving 7% super energy per arc trace to 4%, but it will also give additional bolt charge stacks while sprinting. Now on to the big stuff. We've got some huge reworks to stats and loot. Let's start with stats, since that'll lead nicely into the loot itself. The stats on your armor are almost completely changing. Gone are the days of resilience, recovery, and mobility. Our 6 stats to invest in will be weapons, health, class, melee, grenade, and super. These stats will now also go to 200 instead of the usual ceiling of 100. The climb from 0 to 100 of these stats and the climb from 101 to 200 will give you different benefits. Here's the breakdown. Health up to 100 will give chunk healing when collecting an orb of power. It also gives slight flinch resistance. From 101 to 200 it will increase your total shields and improve the recharge rate and delay of your shields. Melee up to 100 will improve the base cooldown of your melee ability, as well as providing enhanced energy gains from other sources, such as exotics. 101 to 200 will improve the damage of your melee up to 30% for powered, unpowered, and glaive melees. This 30% will stack multiplicatively with other melee damage bonuses, and is the only source of damage that will do so. This will be an extremely important stat for melee damage builds. Grenade up to 100 will give improved base grenade cooldown and additional energy from external sources, again, like exotics. 101 to 200 will improve the damage of your grenade ability up to 65%. Super up to 100 will increase the super energy gained from dealing damage. Important to note that this does not reduce your passive super gains from just waiting around. This as well will improve super gains from other sources. 101 to 200 will give improved super damage up to 45%. That Geomag nerf doesn't seem so bad anymore. Class up to 100 will improve the base cooldown of your, you guessed it, class ability. It too improves the class ability gains from external sources. 101 to 200 will grant you an overshield when you use your class ability, up to a maximum of 40 health overshield. The duration of the overshield will depend on the class ability used. Finally, the weapon stat up to 100 will give bonus weapon handling and reload speed, as well as additional damage against minor and major combatants, up to 15% for primary and specials, and 10% for heavies. 101 to 200 will give a chance for additional ammo to be granted when picking up an ammo brick, and grants bonus weapon damage to bosses, again 15% for primary and specials, and 10% for heavies. This will also give an up to 6% weapon damage increase against players. I cannot wait to see the PvP folks mad again. Or did they ever stop being mad? Now, in comparison to how quickly our abilities come back now versus how they will be after this update, Bungie goes on and on about the specifics of the changes, but here's the rundown. We are sitting right now at about a 70 in the new system. So, if you squeeze out 100 grenade stat, you should have more grenades than you do now. If you have 60, you'll have slightly less. Also, since resilience is gone, does that mean we'll just die quicker? No. Bungie has stated that our Guardian's baseline will be 100 resilience, 60 recovery, and 30 mobility, with an extra 10 mobility for the hunters out there. If everything is as they say it is, and trust me, they've said a lot in these blog posts, we should actually be quite a bit stronger than we are now. That strength will have to be something you work for, since your stats are going to determine your ability cooldowns and actual damage, so I suspect we all may feel a little bit weaker when the DLC first drops, but as we all collect some stats and move some stuff around on our characters, I think we'll end up with more control and power than we've ever had. Only time will tell though. Now, let's talk loot. There's a new tiering system involved with loot. Both armor and weapons will drop with a certain tier, up to tier 5. For armor, the tier will determine how much total stat you can have on a given piece, with tier 4 having an additional energy point for mods, and tier 5 additionally providing a tuned stat, which basically allows you to move a few stat points around. It sounds confusing, and it probably will be confusing, so the whole tuning thing we'll just have to wait and try it for ourselves to really understand the value there. The point is, higher tiers equal better and more stats on your armor. Weapon tiers are a little less important. It seems less important at least. Weapons, as they move up in tiers, get a lot more pizzazz, but not a lot more firepower. At tier 2, they become pre-enhanced. Tier 3 gives them more traits. Tier 4 enhances their mods and other components. And finally, tier 5 gives enhanced origin traits, 3 perks per column, and a unique weapon camo. Now that sounds like a lot of goodies, and yeah, it kinda is. But when I say they seem less important, I mean because there's no real damage bonus here. There's been a lot of talk about this whole system being a little sunsetting 2.0, but I'm not really sure that's gonna be the case. Yes, the higher tier weapons are going to be better than the lower tier ones, that's just a fact. On paper, they'll have more reload, more stability, more of pretty much everything, but they ultimately will deal the same damage. They'll be cool to obtain, but until we actually do obtain them, calling this a sunsetting 2.0 is a little hasty. Armor, on the other hand, yes, I will be replacing pretty much everything I have. In addition to those extra stats you get, which do actually increase your damage now, they'll have set bonuses, which add another layer of power to your character. We'll see how all this plays out on the 15th, but right now I'm just happy to be excited for armor of all things. One final note I'd like to bring to the forefront is the new portal system. Instead of the director, we'll now be using what's been dubbed the portal. This serves the same function as the director, but with a new coat of paint. Activities will be categorized by type, with the 4 main types being Solo, Fireteam, Pinnacle, and Crucible. These are mostly self-explanatory, though Solo, from what I understand, isn't strictly solo and allows for up to 3 players. There will also be this whole system where you can customize the difficulty of activities with modifiers, which awards you with, well, more rewards as you make the difficulty harder and harder. Again, we'll just have to see how this plays out. And that's about everything I wanted to cover. There's a lot of information out there about what's changing and how things will work, but ultimately half the fun of new content is figuring it out and getting excited when you do actually figure something out on your own. This was simply a list of things I was looking forward to, and honestly, it's about all you need to know going into the expansion. As I've said in the past, I'm not big on preparing for expansions, and that remains here. But what about you? What are your most excited new features coming in the new year of Destiny? Did I miss your favorite change? Let me know down in the comments. Until next time.